Hello and welcome to Selnar's Minis. Today I'm going to be showing you how to paint worn and distressed leathers using the following colors on the screen. But before we start that, I would like it if you could like this video, comment on this video, or subscribe to my channel to help it grow. Also, paint fearlessly. It's just paint and you can fix any mistakes. So we're going to start off with Army Painter's Leather Brown, and I'm going to have two models for this how-to video, and I'm going to start off with this Reaper Miniatures Bones Blacksmith, who I've painted everything but the leather bits. And we're going to go ahead and do a complete coverage of this leather brown over all the leather areas, which is the brace around his arm and his apron. So why show you how to paint distressed or worn leathers? Well, not every adventurer's, every monster's, or every soldier's leather is going to be brand new and it's going to show wear and tear, especially on people like blacksmiths who use these aprons to protect themselves while they work. So after I get the complete coverage on the leather brown and let it dry completely, I'm going to go around and start doing highlights with Monster Brown from Army Painter. Now normally I would do a shade and then do the leather brown again and then move on to Monster Brown, but this technique, we're going to dirty this up quite a bit, and so I want to establish the lights and the shadows in the form of just the base color of leather brown early on. And a lot of what you're going to see me do is very sketchy in appearance and motion technique. As you can see here, I'm just kind of like, I know where I want to put it, but I'm not putting it on smooth. I'm just kind of making texture with the paint. This is to kind of help give that kind of worn, abraded look to the leathers. And as I said, we're going to hit the edges, so I'm going to go around and hit all the edges on this leather apron before we move on. Okay, and your eyes are not deceiving you. I am once again adding Monster Brown over areas that had already applied Monster Brown. It looked a little too similar to the leather brown with just one coat, so I made sure to go ahead and reinforce the look of the Monster Brown by applying an additional layer over the areas I had already touched. After I have reapplied that Monster Brown highlight, I went ahead and mixed Monster Brown with Banshee Brown in a 1:1 ratio. And then I went around and started adding a more refined, smaller set of highlights over the areas of Monster Brown. Again, all this work is to bring us up to where we can start dirtying up our apron. That is a little bit further on in this video, but it will be shown. Once again, I'm just going to go ahead and go around and re-establish these highlights and start adding some extra textures. Right. Okay, and now we have started just using regular Banshee Brown to provide scratches, tears, highlights, higher highlights than what we had before, but mostly for this stage, I'm going ahead and just adding texture, scratches, blemishes to this leather, because as leather is used and the older it gets, the more wear and tear starts to show. It starts to show lines. It starts to show scratches. And so to tie this all in, I'm going to go ahead and wash this all with a sepia wash from Games Workshop. A sepia brown wash from any company will work for this. Basically, at this point, we're starting to get it to look more skin-like. A little less brown by itself, but a little bit of other warmer colors involved as well. And then after that stage and that dries, we are going to go and start to apply spot applications of the Agrax Earthshade. This is to show more of the oils working their way into the leathers, the dirt and the grime. I'm trying to hit it a little bit lower, like where, you know, the metal and the ash would hit the apron to protect him. And after we do this stage, we're going to go ahead and add even more spot applications of Nuln Oil, which is a black wash from Games Workshop. And all this will kind of make this leather appear more used, more distressed, burnt, dirty, but not cleaned, things of that nature. If you wanted to get really, really like into it, you could even go back and even apply your leather brown to areas that you wanted to brighten up again, and then Monster Brown again to bring more highlights out. But once again, this is a technique to help provide worn and distressed leathers. Now, this next technique is one I started using after speed paints came out. And what I'm going to do is I have my black, gray, and white dry brushed leather for this Reaper Bones Mercenary. And I'm going to go ahead and use Brainmatter Beige to start doing my highlights and my scratches at this stage. So I'm going to go around and do this, and I'll be right back. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about speed paints and why I'm doing what I'm doing. I'm going ahead and trying to make the areas I want to stand out the most as bright as possible so that you can see the color difference in the speed paint after its coverage. So it'll be darker when it settles in the recesses, it'll be darker where the areas are gray and black, it'll be lighter where it's more gray, white, and where it's Brainmatter Beige. Now, I'm trying to do all this work, the highlights and the scratches and the blemishes in advance with this technique to get most of the work done for us in advance. This is a very different technique than trying to just layer up all the different colors like we did on the previous model. I really like the way this turns out. You can mix these browns really easily, the speed paint browns with other colors to get some slightly different color variations in your leathers. But for now, I'm just going to show you how I'm doing it this way, and then we'll talk about how to make it look better after we apply the speed paint. So just a few more moments and then we'll start doing that. And right, be right back. All right, so now that we have all the areas we want it to be highlighted or distressed or have scratches, blemishes, all those things, we're going to go ahead and apply the Army Painter Speed Paint 2.0 Hardened Leather over these regions. Now, Speed Paint is a very liquid paint. I do not recommend putting it on a wet palette. It'll make it just that much more harder to control. But the important thing about speed paints is once you start applying them, you shouldn't stop until you're done with that color and the areas you are trying to cover. Once again, do not stop painting the areas you want to cover with the paint until you're done. And you want to try to do it as evenly as possible. If you stop and come back to it later after it's dried, you will get tide marks. There will be marks where you have stopped and restarted. So it is in your best interest to go ahead and finish the areas with a color that you want to use with speed paints all at once. So take the time and do it all at once. If you have to stop, you have to stop. There's nothing you can do about that, but it's just my recommendation to go ahead and paint the color that you're using on all the areas you want to on the model all at once. I should also say that once you have applied the speed paint and it is not as dark as you would like it to be, let it dry completely. If you do not, you'll start to pull the paint up as you apply your second layer, pretty much like you would if you did the same with any other acrylic. Once you have gotten the color to the darkness or intensity that you would like, the next stage is to actually go ahead and take Brainmatter Beige and mix it with the hardened leather. Yes, you can mix Army Painter speed paints and regular acrylics together. And what I'm going to do at this stage is I'm going to go over areas and just reinforce areas I want to be brighter. As you can see all the lines, but sometimes you want to make them look a little brighter, or you want to add new lines that are just a different shade than the actual, hardened leather just over the Brainmatter Beige. So go ahead and mix those together and start to apply those into different regions or over areas that you've already painted. And then the next stage after that is to go ahead and just take Brainmatter Beige again and just start hitting areas that you want to be brighter or show more scratches, more wear and tear, or newer wear and tear. The great thing about this technique is, much like the other one where you can just build up on it by adding more layers, you can do the same here. You could do a whole another series of scratches, highlights, blemishes, creases, and apply the hardened leather over again. It's just going to darken up the hardened leather and kind of hide the other colors under the tint of the hardened leather. So this is a technique that, again, you can just build up by adding more and more scratches to make it look more and more worn. However, one should keep in mind that you can, with both techniques, go too far. You will get to a point where it doesn't look like it's worn leather, it just looks like a mess. So, and that's part of the reason why I stopped when I did on this particular model, is because I really liked the way it turned out and it looked battle worn and like discolored. But I felt like if I kept going, it would make it look just muddled. So these are two different ways to make worn and distressed leather. If you have any questions, you can ask them in the comments. I do teach this class at Board Bar Games, and this is just another video in that series. So once again, thank you for watching. Please take a moment to like, comment, and subscribe to my channel. And as always, paint fearlessly. It's just paint, and you can fix any mistakes.